Namaste, greetings and welcome back. I am Dr. Naresh Bana, International PPP Consultant, and with me is Ms. Shivanshi Shukla, and we are going to talk about the budget presented in Indian Parliament yesterday. While the budget fever is on, while everybody is talking about the taxes, benefits, this allocation, that allocation, one of the most important yet not so glamorous is the development of rural infrastructure and agribusiness. We are going to discuss that part in next 15 to 20 minutes, and we'll try to highlight certain issues where public-private partnership can make a tangible and very important intervention. And Ms. Shivanshi Shukla is going to be the moderator.
Yesterday, Financial Minister Nirmala Sitharaman announced the budget for 2024-2025 with major emphasis on 9 priorities for generating ample opportunities in productivity and resilience in agriculture, employment and skilling, inclusive human resource development and social justice, manufacturing and service, urban development, energy security, and so on. According to you, what does this budget entail for a significant proportion of the population living in the rural areas?
See, India has almost 2/3 population living in rural areas. There are more than 600,000 villages and about 250,000 panchayats, and a total of 2.3 lakh crore has been allocated, which is equivalent to about $28 billion US. And there are various schemes for agribusiness and the rural development. And some of these, the prominent ones are, there is Prime Minister Gram Sadak Yojana, Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Generation Scheme, Prime Minister's Awas Yojana Gramin, Digital India, Deen Dayal Upadhyay Gramin Kaushal Yojana, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, National Rural Health Mission, and there are many others. So this is the allocation.
So this budget is seen as a deviance from the current government's trickle-down approach or strategy. What has been the outcome of this strategy so far for the rural areas?
I would say is that they were investing more in the larger projects to consider the employment will trickle down to the rural areas, or the trickle down effect will be taking those places also forward. But there has been definite allocation for rural infrastructure and agribusiness in all through years, in past as well. So this year is no exception, but yes, the focus has certainly been specific this time on skills, rural infra, and agribusiness. So you would be delighted to know that we have more than 922 million people living in the 250,000 panchayats which I mentioned. And in addition to this $28 billion under various schemes, there is always an allocation for the panchayati raj institutions, the panchayats as such, for their institutional movement and work which are done under their supervision. But the unfortunate part is the Controller and Auditor General of India has pointed out numerous deficiencies in rolling out of these schemes as well as running of panchayati raj institutions. In 2020 report, it was quite scathing attack on how these schemes and the institutions are being run.
So according to you, is corruption a significant factor in the implementation failure of these schemes which you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, as I was just mentioning, the CAG report is, it goes on to say that somewhere from 10 to 50%, 10 to 50% of the allocated funds they just land up misappropriated. And what gets utilized is also, as I have seen, gets utilized for hiring of transport, hiring of buildings, promotional activities, publicity, uh, hiring of costly consultants, travel, air travel. So all those things take away, and barely 10% of allocated amount gets utilized for the rightful purpose. And you will also be surprised to know that almost 20 to 25% of allocations which have been made for the Rural Development Ministry and the Agriculture domain have got surrendered over the year. Every year, 20 to 25% of funds remain unutilized.
So, in that context, can you please draw a comparison between the Panchayati Raj institutions and the local urban bodies with respect to funding? Because we see so much development happening in our cities and towns, but what is the situation in the rural areas?
Here I am reminded of the statement made by Dr. Bimal Jalan, former governor of RBI, in one of his books, The Future of India. He says the unfortunate part is that the maximum funds move to the place and for purpose where they are least required. Same is happening between our rural landscape and the urban India. Urban India is getting twice as much the funds as are being allocated for the rural, which is twice the size and the quantity and people as compared to the urban. So and then there is a multiplier effect.
Yes.
Because the delivery of the schemes and the infrastructure in rural areas is far inferior and far delayed as compared to the urban. So while you can see our cities are shining, they are top class, world class infrastructure in many cities. And you get out of the city, let's take the example of National Capital Region Delhi. Go 100 kilometers out or even 70 kilometers, you will possibly be encountering many infrastructure deficiencies which you would otherwise think that should not be there.
So, according to you, what are the probable solutions for these problems?
Before I come to the solutions, I would like to say that you see, there are problems, and these problems are primarily due to the managerial issues. Managerial issues, control issues, which are in the decision making capacity of politicians and our bureaucracy. I see the maximum deficiency of control and delivering the infrastructure or the right content in terms of developmental content is at district and sub-district level. Politicians at district or sub-district level are primarily concerned in collecting funds for building their own estate or for fighting the next election. Bureaucrats are no less. The insensitivity is colossal and manifests all around. Coming to what you said is what needs to be done. First and foremost, we need to appreciate that there is a problem of capacity deficiency and corruption at lowest level where it matters most, and lack of information are at the root of the problem. Because there is no timely redressal of any complaint which is raised or any action which is required to be taken for controlling these, people at large in rural areas have come to terms with that this is the way of life. And instead of fighting the corruption, instead of reporting against the corruption, they become willy-nilly party to it. And that takes the cycle in opposite direction. Here I will give you an example. one of the most cherished scheme is MG Narega, which is mandated to create certain man days in a year for each and every person holding the MG Narega card with minimum wages. Right? Now, due to corruption, most of the time, these people do not go and do the required work, but they get some part of the daily wage, whether it is 30%, 40%, or 50% of actually which he should have got without working. So he is then not bothered what happens to the balance 50% which actually should have come to him. And that 50% goes into the pockets of the corrupt officials who are not bothered about the quality or the work which was required to be done. So it is not only the loss of direct money or the purchasing power to this person who was to be helped by such schemes, but the community infrastructure which could have been built with this money also remains absent. You getting my point?
Yes. So, in all this, what can be the role of PPP across sectors in the rural areas?
I would say PPP really can do a lot, but you have to have an enabling environment for that. PPPs, if I put it for the knowledge of everybody, that public-private partnership is basically an arrangement where the public services, that means the services which actually should have been delivered by the government, are offered to be provided by the private party for a longer duration against payment of user charges. So this is a elaborate contractual arrangement where the risks are shared, competencies are shared, and benefits are shared between the private businessman and the government or the public authority. So since it's a contractual web, it requires the support of policy, the legal, the enforcement, all these supports. So these are enabling environment. And this enabling environment have to be created first before you launch PPPs. PPPs overnight will not do any correction. Something like what has been done in state of Uttar Pradesh, where the current government improved the law and order situation to such an extent that their economy has more than doubled in last 5-6 years and now going towards becoming $1 trillion economy. So if you have enabling environment, if you have committed uh, district and sub-district level officials, PPPs can really do wonders.
So, like you mentioned about PPP, enabling the PPP infrastructure and promoting it. So, what I understood from your discussion on PPP, I think that the PPP model will make the private person who is involved in the project more dedicated to his work, and that way he will get some return on investment on the project. And in a similar way, the government will also get some benefits for the general public.
Exactly, exactly. You're right. So you see, the public-private partnership, as you rightly said, the association together will ensure that the project runs for the long duration for which it is envisaged, and that public utility or the public infrastructure will also facilitate the economic activity in the region, in the target area, and that economic activity will have the benefits going to people which is a direct benefit to the government, because that's what government wanted. That people's earning should improve, their livelihood should become better, their lifestyle becomes better, right? And to ensure that today the governments can have the same what they do for the bigger projects. The similar things can be offered for the smaller projects at district and sub-district level. What's lacking is the capacity. The capacity which is existing with the district and sub-district level is either absent, they do not know what PPP is, or even if they know, they do not know how to procure PPP projects. Whereas the people who are supposed to be investing, the best is the people who are going to benefit. The business men among them should be the one who should take up such projects, because they are the first stakeholders who will enjoy benefits of such infrastructure, and they are likely to have more concern for its good quality and good running. At the same time, the capacity building which is needed for all the 600 plus districts can be undertaken as on a top priority. We have sufficient capacity in the country today with PPP environment, but it needs to be brought out from the control of the so-called big consultancies, and using AI and IT infrastructure, we need to first create those trainers of the trainers, and then let such specialization flow down to district and sub-district level, and let then unleash the PPP format based projects in every subdivision and district, duly monitored by the district and sub-district authorities with rightful regulation and legal format available, so that disputes are resolved within no time. There is insurance cover, there is a financing for such projects so that their bankability is assured, the investor gets their return on investment. It is doable, but it has to be accorded right priority, and it has to be understood as such at the national level. Then only we can address this problem of rural infrastructure and the rural agribusiness scenario.
This PPP model and its development will also stop the excessive migration which is happening from the rural areas to
Yes.
urban areas, and would also create less burden on the urban infrastructure and increase its durability.
Exactly. Yes. Because it is more sustainable for those people who are living in rural areas to be accessing those urban facilities while being there. It makes much better sense to have better hospitals, better schools, better power sources, and better sewage disposal, better roads in villages. So the need of the hours is that we make more and more smart villages, more and more sustainable villages. And we have done smart cities for 10 years. We have seen the results, not so encouraging. Let's try smart villages. Let's try sustainable villages now based on PPP. It's doable.
Thank you.
So, thank you, viewers. I'm sure you found it interesting. If there are any comments, you can write. And if you liked it, like and share. And keep viewing till we come back to you with our next interesting episode. Namaste and have a great day.